Anyway, so today we will be talking about Microsoft's new commerce experience. We're going to be talking about what it is and how it affects how you buy Microsoft 365. For the most part, Microsoft 365 is a fantastic product. It takes care of your Office and all the wonderful things you have, and buying it is a piece of cake. You don't even think about it. Microsoft has made some changes, so it gives you something to think about now. But for the most part, it's how things are ordered and renewed. And it's mostly stuff that the provider, like Dynamic Quest, has to deal with. So why should you care? This webinar will talk about it. Okay, so make sure I click on the right place and off we go. So what we're going to talk about is the new commerce experience program itself. We will compare it to the ways that that software was purchased before. We'll talk about some key dates that you'll need to be aware of, and contractual changes. That's really kind of where most people have their concerns. We're going to be talking about positioning Microsoft 365 in the whole ecosystem, on how all that fits. So you can see why some of these decisions are starting to become more important, and then we'll open it up to questions. So the new commerce experience program itself is simply the platform through which we order and you purchase Microsoft 365 products. So right now, there are multiple ways that people get products. They might be getting it through an enterprise agreement or a Select Plus agreement. They might be getting it through volume licensing. They might be getting it through SPLA. But when it comes to Office products, that's really done through a cloud partner, right? And cloud partners are cloud solutions providers. And that is the kind of highlighted box on the left. So even though there's a whole bunch of different ways you get software from Microsoft, the ones we're concerned about are the ones that are kind of coming through the cloud partnership. But be aware, the new commerce experience is the way that Microsoft is going to move everything. So SPLA and enterprise agreements and volume licensing are all moving to this over time. And what it becomes is a different way of moving in between the different types of platforms, where the partners like Dynamic Quest can now add value, as opposed to, well, you buy it this way here and this way here. We put it all together for you and allow a lot more management and see it a lot more easily through a single interface. And you get to see it through your admin interfaces. So this is part of an overall strategy, but today we are focusing, again, just kind of on the blue boxes, the cloud partnership and the CSP program. We're also going to be focusing today just on the Microsoft 365 family of products. And when I say Microsoft 365, that covers a lot of ground. It's the stuff that most people think about: Microsoft 365 Business, the Microsoft 365 Enterprise line, as well as Frontline, which not everyone is aware of, but it's a different way of providing Office to people who tend to not be in an office, but are kind of out there on the front line with iPads and mobile devices. They will work slightly differently, and Frontline is an option for them. Office 365, which is kind of where all this stuff started, but the Dynamics products, Dynamics 365, Enterprise Mobility and Security, which is the real add-on for Office that brings it up to the enterprise levels of the Microsoft 365, as well as components of Azure. Lots of Azure is already in the new commerce experience, but parts of it are kind of tied back into the 365 line. So things like Azure Active Directory and related products there. Teams Voice, also known as Microsoft Business Voice, is part of this. And then Power BI and Project and Visio and lots of things you can add. So lots of related products. But this is the line of products we're going to be talking about today, as opposed to something like SQL Server or Windows 11 or something of that nature. So I want to kind of look back on the way things were done and then how they are today. So under the Cloud Solutions Provider Program, that was what everyone's kind of used to. you had a whole bunch of products, call them subscriptions. They each carried a single price. You build them and renew them on a monthly basis. Easy peasy to order. You could put the count of licenses up and take them down as much as you wanted. And there were no term commitments or anything like that. And there's no price protection. If Microsoft decides to raise the price, they could do that. Doesn't have a big history of doing that. That's probably about to change. And there were no restrictions. You could move it from one provider to another. So if you didn't like your current provider and wanted to move to Dynamic Quest, you could easily move your subscriptions over. Piece of cake, why mess with perfection, right? Well, there's lots of reasons for it, but under the new commerce experience, there is now a new way of ordering it. And forgive me, I have a dog and he's decided to suddenly start barking at people. So hopefully that is not too annoying. Hannah, feel free to chat me if there's if anything comes up that I need to be aware of. With the new commerce experience, there are now commitment terms that have price protection associated with them. So you commit to a certain amount of time, your price is protected, but you are committed. You are going to pay for that entire commitment term. But there's lots of different ways you can pay for it. You can pay for it up front, and we'll go all of these in detail, but different payment options. And that your price was now based on the combination of the product and the term and how you paid for it. So the price is variable based upon those pieces. And there are license count decrease restrictions. You can still add as much as you want, but if you want to take them back, if you want to decrease your count, certain subscriptions allow for that and certain don't. And if you want to terminate early for any possible reason, there are restrictions there. You have to pay it out. And there are restrictions on moving subscriptions between providers. So if you don't like somebody and you want to come to Dynamic Quest, you might not be able to bring those subscriptions over. So you may have to continue a relationship simply to pay those out. And we'll go over that in more detail as well. So there's a lot going on here in terms of essentially your commitment to Microsoft as mediated by Dynamic Quest. And remember, this is Microsoft doing this, not Dynamic Quest. So let's get into each one of these in a little bit more detail. First of all, it's all about commitment. You are making a commitment to Microsoft for those licenses. And you can do that on a month-to-month basis. That's exactly the way, the old program way, and you can continue to do that. You can also purchase on an annual basis. So you say, I'm going to purchase on that entire year's worth, and I promise I'll pay the whole thing out. Or you can do triannual, 36 months. And for each one of those, you can have different payment options. For monthly, obviously the only way to pay for that is monthly. For annual, though, you can pay up front, or you can pay on a monthly basis. And for triannual, you can pay up front or 3 times during months 1, 13, and 25. So that's annually or monthly. So different ways of doing that. This is where people start scratching their heads and they say, well, hold on, what's the point of these commitments? And the point of the commitment is that the commitment and how you pay for it changes the price. So I'm going to talk about the TCMP, the then current Microsoft price. And what I mean by that is Microsoft publishes a price for their product. Let's say Microsoft Business Premium. That's $20 a month. So right now, that's the then current Microsoft price for today. That's going to change March 1st, as you're going to find out. So if you want to go month to month and have a monthly commitment, that gives you lots of flexibility. All the green stuff, you can increase your licenses as much as you want, and you can decrease them as much as you want. You simply pay monthly, and there's no early termination. But you're going to pay 20% on top of the price for that flexibility. And you're not going to be protected from any price increases. So Microsoft is saying, hey, if we don't know how long you're going to be with us, and you want lots of flexibility, we're going to charge you 20% for that privilege. Right? But it gives people flexibility, and some people need that. So they say, look, there's value to to the flexibility, so we're going to charge in that. But a lot of people said, well, I don't want to pay that premium. And Microsoft says, fine. If you make a commitment to us for an annual or a triannual term, you'll pay the published price. And Dynamic Quest is actually offering an exclusive 5% discount on those contracts if you pay it up front. So if you pay for the entire thing in one shot, you get a 5% discount. And that's not time limited. That's at any time. Microsoft is offering something similar, but theirs only runs to March 10th, or March 28th. During that term, you are protected on your price. So whatever you buy it at when you start your term, anything you add to it will stay at that price. So even if Microsoft jacks up the price later, you still continue to pay that price all the way to the end of that term. Anything you add to it will co-term to it. So if, let's say you bought Business Premium for a year, all right, that's $20 times a year, so that's $240. And then you buy another license halfway through, all right, and let's say you paid for it up front, all right. So if you buy another one halfway through at the essentially starting month 7, you would pay $120, 6 months worth at $20. Doesn't matter what the price is right now from Microsoft. That's what you bought it for under this contract. That's what you'll pay for any increases. But you can't decrease during that time. So if you want to take them down by 10 people, you can only do that at your renewal. And that's where some of this flexibility kind of seems to be lost. And if you say, look, I've got to stop for whatever reason, you have to pay out the whole thing. So that's the commitment that you make. All right, so that's where this comes from. So things to remember here, on month to month, you get flexibility. You can increase and decrease your license counts as much as you want, the way you always have. But that comes at a cost, 20% premium on the published Microsoft price, and there's no price protection. So if Microsoft raises the price, then next month you will pay the higher price plus the 20%. So keep that in mind on month to month. It gives you flexibility, but at a cost. For annual and triannual commitments, though, I say limited flexibility. You can increase license counts as much as you need in a co-term. So there's no loss of flexibility there, but you can only decrease at the renewal. But you get better pricing. You will get it at the published Microsoft price. And if you pay up front, you'll get the exclusive 5% discount, right, on the entire order. And you get the price protection. Your price is locked for that 12 or 36 months. And if you increase, you get it at the committed price that you originally signed. And that if there's any Microsoft price increases, they only take effect at the renewal. And people say, wait a minute, I don't like that. I don't know necessarily, I might have a seasonal workforce that goes up and down, as well as a base workforce that stays all the time. How do I do this? And we say, let us mix and match for you. All right, so mix and match is the way to do this. You can buy the same product with different commitments and payment options. So you can mix a floor number of annual and triannual subscriptions, and you can pay for those either upfront or 12 on a monthly basis, however you want to do it. All right. You can lower your cost, obviously, by paying up front, but you're going to minimize your costs by doing this because you're going to get the price protection and the different payment options, and you'll get the discounts and all that with that floor number. And then for the number of seasonals maybe that you need or whatever it happens to be, you can float those. So you can take those up and down as you need during the season, and you're just going to pay the premium on a month-to-month basis for that. And you might have to pay, a different price than what you bought the other ones at, but it allows you to do that. Now, most of our clients are actually fairly static, or they're in a growth mode. And so buying annual and triannual makes a lot of sense for them. They feel very confident about it. But if you know something's coming up, a downsizing, a seasonal need, whatever it happens to be, that's when you have to decide what you want. The advantage is that We know you. We are familiar with your business, and we can help you plan. And so reach out to your account exec or your account manager and say, what do you think? How many should I get of this? How many of that? Where can I get the discounts? Can you give me an accurate quote if I mix them this way and that way? And we can do it. And we'll show you the best way to balance that cost and commitment, the price protection, and the flexibility to meet your unique needs. Okay. Now, there's some key dates that are coming up about all of this, because right now, for almost everyone who's on this call, I believe, nothing has changed, although some of you might have seen proposals from us already. January 1st through June 30th. Essentially, subscriptions may be migrated now from the legacy CSP way of doing things to the new commerce experience platform at any point. All right. So when you say go, we will go. As an incentive to get you to move to these new subscriptions, to the new commerce experience, Microsoft is saying, hey, during this period, the first 6 months, even if you select month to month because you're not exactly sure which way you want to do it yet, you can do that. And we won't charge you the 20% bump. All right. So this gives you some deciding time if you have some things to work through over the next few months. So you can stay pretty much where you are, but here's the caveat. Any price increases that come out will still be applied to those. So you won't pay the premium, but you won't have the price lock. So that's kind of the trade-off. And starting July 1st, the premium will hit. All right, so this gives you some deciding time. On the flip side, you could decide right away, I want to do an annual or a triannual and move forward. Now, the triannuals are only on a very small number of subscriptions, mostly in the Dynamics 365 area. They're not available for any of the Microsoft 365 Business, Enterprise, or Office 365 Enterprise products. So those are less, and those are the ones that most people have. They don't have triannual options at this point. Now, a key date that's coming up is March 1st, at which point Microsoft is going to raise prices. And they're listed there on your screen, but it's roughly 15%. And they are some of the most popular ones out there. So the Office 365 Enterprise E1, E3, E5, they're all going up. And the Microsoft 365 Enterprise E3, it's going up. On the business side, Microsoft 365 Business, the basic and the premium are going up, but the standard is not. Okay. One thing to notice, Microsoft 365 Enterprise E3 is $20 today. Microsoft 365 Business Premium is $20 today. Those have the exact same price, but after the raise, Office 365 Enterprise E3 will be $23 and Business Premium will be $22. Why would Microsoft do that? They're trying to move people to the business, to Microsoft 365 line. So it makes sense to make it attractive to do that. And I'll show you at the end why it makes a lot of sense to do that anyway. So if you want to lock in current pricing, and because all of these are really open to annual agreements only, you want to sign your annual agreements before February 28th. All right, so this way you can lock in today's pricing before the price increase and get to enjoy that for 12 months. And then next year, you would then be at the then current pricing. So no way to avoid it forever, but it's just the way it goes. Now on March 10th, anything that you want to add that's new, something you never had before, that's got to be entered under the NCE program. We cannot add new CSP style subscriptions after essentially March 9th. So if you were doing, let's say, business standard, and that's all you had, and then you say, I want to add Dynamics, that Dynamics cannot come in under CSP. It's got to come in under NCE. Okay. And then starting July 1st, all the CSPs need to be migrated to the new commerce experience. Essentially, CSPs renew monthly. They have to be NCE. And if you have not moved them into essentially placed an order under the NCE platform, those CSP orders will actually be disabled. The users will get locked out. So lots of advance warning here. Make your decisions prior to June 30th, all right? Lock prices in prior to March 1st. Also, July 1st, that incentive that Microsoft is doing where they're not going to hit the 20% bump, that goes away. So anyone who's on month-to-month NCE subscriptions will start to see that 20% bump in the price as well. So key dates to understand. We're going to be telling you about them a lot because it is in everyone's interest to make sure that all these subscriptions move over as they should. Okay. As you might imagine, because of all these changes, we have to change our contracts to match those. So a couple things to consider as we talk about this. There are some key dates that you will become very aware of. These are called effective dates, renewal dates, and billing dates. The effective date is the day that you say you want your subscriptions to start. That also becomes the renewal date. So whatever date you say it's effective, that's the date that Microsoft considers your subscription running. But it's different than the billing date because we bill on the first of the month. All right, so the billing date tends to be the day after the effective date, first of all, and it's tied to the first of the month. Our distributors do this. It's a pain in the neck. So what that means, though, is that on your first bill, you might see a partial month. Let's say you made something effective February 20th. You might see 8 days of partial on the first bill plus the other one. However, that's just the billing dates. Those will be the first of the month, first of the month, first of the month. But if you have made it effective February 20th, that means you will renew on February 20th a year later if you did an annual, or March 20th if you went month to month. So keep that in mind. The renewal date's tied to the effective date. The billing date is the day after, and the billing date's always on the first. And there's something called a rescission period. Because you cannot decrease the license counts on an annual or triannual, just like buying a house or a real estate transaction, you got 3 days to think about it. And if you say, I would like to cancel, or I'd like to decrease, you can do that. Essentially, day 1 is the effective date. Day 2 and 3, you can get some partial refunds off that. But after day 3, you've committed. So keep that in mind. You have a rescission period. Because the effective dates can be at any point, you say you start this one here and start this one here and all that. And because these are done, the same product could have a different term, mix and match and all that, you might end up with a different renewal date for the same product. You might have 3 different renewal dates because if you have month to month, they'll have one renewal date. If you have an annual, it might have another. And if you have a triannual, it might have a third. All right, so keep that in mind. All right, so when you want to add licenses, we have to know, are you adding to your month-to-month pool, or are you adding to your annual pool or to your triennial pool? In practice, most people will have 1 or 2 pools, but just keep it in mind. Tracking this stuff is going to be a nightmare. There's just no way around it. We will be providing reports through our account managers to let you know in advance when your renewals are coming up so that you can make decisions at the renewal date if you need to make changes. And then this is a big one. MSP to MSP transfers, provider to provider transfers can only happen at renewals. You must pay out your commitment to the original MSP that sold it to you. And Microsoft enforces that. That's not us. That's not our distributor. That's Microsoft. So what it means is if you don't like your current provider and you want to come to Dynamic Quest, but you have signed an agreement under the new commerce experience for a year, you'll have to pay that out to them. And you cannot start a new one with us for the same product and term because Microsoft will say, whoa, there's already a subscription for this. You have to continue with that one until renewal. So keep that in mind, that you will need to maintain a business relationship with anyone that you're transferring from until the renewals. Now that's a billing issue only. It's not management. All right. Anyone can manage your subscriptions for you. All right. So that's up to you on who you want working with you. But who you pay for it, that's cast in stone when you make the commitment. So keep that in mind. Because of that, there will be a new Microsoft 365 and Cloud Backup addendum. Right now we have an Office 365 and backup addendum. We're replacing it with this, and we'll be asking you to sign that. And pretty much what it's doing is it's just documenting the new Microsoft terms. And it spells out in fun legalese all the stuff about commitments and payment options and renewals and when you can do it and early terminations and all that stuff. It's all just spelled out. All right, so it's been a lot of fun for lawyers, not so much fun for us. There's also a Microsoft customer agreement that everyone signs as part of that, and we include that in our initial agreements. That has not changed, but we're not so sure that's not going to change because of this, so stay tuned. You may be asked to sign the Microsoft agreement. When you sign ours, it says you agree to the Microsoft one as well, so you'll have a copy of the current one. It hasn't been updated since 2018, but Microsoft, if they change it, you might see something that says, oh, by the way, their terms have changed as well. So don't be surprised at that. Keep in mind, this is our hey. Don't blame us. Microsoft is mandating these changes. This is not coming from us. They're required no matter who you get your products from, even if you get them directly from Microsoft. So everyone is doing this. Every MSP is going through this. Every CDW and Ingram Micro is doing this. Microsoft Direct, everyone working. We're all applying by the exact same rules. But that said, we have in-depth knowledge on this. We have studied this, and I'm the point person on this. We know every detail about what's going on, and we know who to go to if questions come up that even we don't know. We have direct lines into Microsoft as well as the distributors on how to answer these questions and make sure that everyone's staying on the same path. And we have a relationship with you. We understand your business. We've been working with you for years. So we have the capability to make the right recommendations for you. Because I can tell you there will probably be some people who will try to come in and sweet talk you into signing a deal with them just for the software. Work with us. We can help get you where you want. We're not in there for the quick hit. So keep that in mind. So I bring this part up, positioning Microsoft 365, because as you make your decisions, this is a great time to think about your current mix of products and should you be thinking about different products. Microsoft 365 is the strategic direction for Microsoft. It is a strategic platform. And right now, the stuff in blue is what most people know. Workstation operating systems and server operating systems and the Office suite and all those cloud apps and stuff. Azure, Teams Voice. But behind the scenes, there's workstation deployment and mobile device management, security. There's a whole lot of things that Azure is doing and that the Microsoft 365 line is doing that's going to make things easier and that are going to integrate across all your lines. Back in that first slide, I showed you that there were a whole bunch of different ways of buying products, and we were just talking about a very narrow sliver of it, but everything's going to this. And Microsoft 365 will become a key to SQL Server and Exchange and Windows Server and all the rest. So having the right mix of products is now going to become more and more important, especially as Azure becomes a more central cloud platform for delivering lots of stuff that people were buying from third parties or that you just kind of took for granted, like printing. You know, there's something called Azure Universal Print that allows you to print through the cloud without any print drivers. It's a great technology, but you have to have the right licenses to get it. So we'll talk about that in just a moment, but looking at your mix is important and realizing how important Microsoft 365 is to Microsoft strategy and to the infrastructure. So Microsoft 365 Business Premium, which is really targeted towards those clients that have less than 300, essentially the business line. Business Premium becomes a very key product. And the Microsoft 365 Enterprise products right now, E3, E5, those are targeted to clients who have more than 300 licenses. And take that with a grain of salt. You can have 250 and 250 and 250, or 750 total, and you can still have all business. That's fine. But that's really where Microsoft is trying to differentiate, saying if you have more than 300 people, you probably have some pretty big issues that you want to deal with. Less than 300, maybe not so much. Not a question of maturity or anything like that. It's just not everyone necessarily has the budgets and the needs for what some of these enterprise class stuff is going to. So Microsoft 365 is really becoming the hub of your local and cloud computing ecosystems. So I like to say it's not just Office anymore. It's everything. It's your server OS, it's your workstation OS, it's virtual desktops, it's cloud apps, it's storage, it's security, it's everything. It's becoming the hub. So making sure that you have the right foundational licenses, especially if you have to make commitments for them on an annual basis, becomes very important. Which ones do I want to do that for? So Business Premium, Enterprise, those are foundational. They also tend to be less expensive than putting together all the parts. Now, you can do it less expensive by buying some of the parts, but if you want everything eventually, it's actually a better way to do it. So now's a good time to review your products. There's a great website out there, nothing to do with Microsoft. It's someone who just really figured out graphically how to represent this, called m365maps.com, to compare plans. And I'll give you a quick example. This is Office 365 Enterprise E3, currently $20, rising up to $23 on March 1st. And you get these wonderful things here, right? So what's that, 5, 7, 35, 39 different things you get with Office E3. This is Microsoft 365 Business Premium, also $20, raising up to 22, right? And in this one, now you have 33 things, 1 or 2 things are slightly different, but that's only because they're moved to a different color. But you get all the enterprise mobility and security stuff with it. You get Windows stuff with it. You get, in preview, Microsoft Defender, which is security, with it. And so something like Universal Print, which comes on the Windows side, that's where that's delivered. If you have Office 365 E3, you don't have it. You do get it here. So this is one of the ones I tend to really push a lot of people towards. If you have Office 365 Enterprise E3, seriously consider about Microsoft 365 Business Premium if you have less than 300 people. If you have more, you have to move to the Enterprise line, which is more expensive, and there's a lot of stuff to think about it, and it may make sense to kind of put things together. Depends on your needs. But if you're less than 300 people, this is almost a no-brainer. But again, it gets you into the foundation for not a whole lot of money, all right? Another thing to consider is that you can upgrade without penalty. Business up and enterprise up, all right? But you can't switch between the business to the enterprise lines. I'm advocating to Microsoft to allow an upgrade up that way, but you can do some upgrades along those lines. So we can help you decide which ones make sense to upgrade. During that time, you are not penalized for your commitments. You will simply co-term up. There's no penalty at that time. So that's a question that always comes up, so I'll answer it right there. So that's a lot of information. Let's open it up to questions. All right, and I will stop sharing my screen here. And I'll take a look at the chat, and let's see. Let's see, do we have questions out there? And Hannah, I'm going to let you moderate this because I'm not sure where necessarily to look for them here.
Yes, I'm monitoring the chat.
They are in the chat?
I haven't seen any questions yet.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Anyone have any questions? And can we unmute people if they want to ask questions, or do you want them to type them in?
I am unmuting them, so if they want to chat, they can.
Okay. Any questions? I know this is a lot to throw at people. Crickets. Let's see. Other mics. Can anyone speak?
So a question coming in, will a copy of this presentation be available and sent out? Yes, I can answer that. Yes.
Yes, exactly. I will produce this in PDF format, make it easy to send out. Yeah. Are people able to unmute if they want to? Have I done something to force them to not be able to?
No, they can unmute. They just have to do unmute themselves.
All right. Any other questions?
I was going to ask, it looks like I can now unmute myself. Yay. In addition to the not the PDF, the presentation itself, I noticed you're recording this. Would the recording of it be available as well?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? I surely didn't make it that clear.
Jenny asked if you have nightmares regarding NCE.
I don't have nightmares about it. Again, I'm the point person, so I've kind of seen where this has gone since Microsoft had put some stuff out in October, but really got in earnest about this in December. It's a lot of change for people. It's forcing decisions very quickly. I can't say it's the smoothest rollout that Microsoft has ever done in terms of getting things to the distributors and then to us. However, initially, as people migrate over, it's fairly straightforward. The toughest part is really figuring your pricing. I have translated all that into a really nice spreadsheet, which I've given to all the account executives. And so they can quickly develop quotes for you to do that will reflect real pricing depending on the real Microsoft discounts and the TQ discounts and all the rest. So getting this stuff in and ordered and migrated is not going to be that big of a deal. It's once you start doing things down the road where suddenly multiple renewal dates become more interesting. And that's going to be a lot of fun for our account managers. But again, we're going to give everyone the information they need to make the right decisions. The important point is, and if you take anything away from the presentation, is go back to the things to remember about monthly versus the things to remember about annual. All right, those are going to help guide you on what you can and cannot do. Anything else I can answer for people? All right.
If there's no additional questions, we'll close out this webinar. Thank you, Daniel, for your expertise. Yep. I will be sending a follow-up email with the PDF version as well as the recording. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to anyone at Dynamic Quest. We will guide you to the right person or your account manager or whatever you may need. We'll get you where you need to go. And thank you so much. And we'll end the webinar.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Daniel.
Sure.